Hi all, I'm going to show you a project that is similar to Lab 1, so you'll be able to get the idea of the readings and the videos that you've watched to apply what you've learned to create Lab 1, and this video is also going to help with that. So here we are in Intellij, and what we're going to do, now this is initially when we create a project, we're going to follow what I'm doing now. Later on, we're going to name our own projects, so we won't be just creating from a template. So when we create new project, we'll click next here. This is the SDK, so we're using the 11 SDK, so make sure that you have that. We go next. Now, we're going to create project from template. It's automatically going to give us a class name of main and a file name of main. By the way, you may have noticed the class name and the file name need to be exactly the same. So if you change one of those two things, you're going to have to change the other thing to make sure it agrees. So now we're going to create a project from template, and the project from the template includes a class with the main method. Now the main method is what is used as the driver of the program. Okay, we'll click next. Now this is very important. This next part is project location. Project location, you've got to be good or get good with file management. You need to know exactly where your files live. So for example, right now, Untitled is not a very good name, so I'm going to obviously change that. But in addition to that, you need to know that where is this located. So you can see the root directory here, c:\users \my name \documents \2467 new. Okay, all that is fine so far, but I don't want it in my exams folder. And you may not want it exactly where it's telling you it's going to put it, and you're going to want to decide that for yourself. So I'm going to click these ellipses here, these three dots, and I'm going to navigate. Now I can tell where I am in my entire computer. I'm in users, I'm in my name, I'm in documents, I am in 2467 new, and let's see, okay, I don't have a class 1 folder, so I think I would like a class 1 folder. So I am going to backspace this out, okay, and I'm just in 2467 new, and let's see here, new folder, there we go, folder name, class 1. Okay, so now I'm in class 1. And I may want to specify further because this is an example and I may have a bunch of examples. So I may want to add a new folder on top of class 1. And this folder is, we'll call it examples. I'll say OK. OK. And you can tell now that Intellij is going to save this project in examples. Finish. Okay, so Intellij, when you use the template, it gives you the public static void main. Okay, this is telling you this is the main method, this is the driver of the program. You don't really have to worry about anything else at this point, just to know that in Java, as we've talked about in previous videos, the syntax is important. And in this case, we start with a curly brace, we start a method with a curly brace, and end it with a curly brace. Notice that the class also begins with a curly brace and ends with a curly brace. Any specific area of Java is going to have that syntax. Okay, so we're going to write the code here, And we have a program where we are going to take two integers and add them. Well, what two integers? Well, I want to let the user decide that. So we are going to have a program with user interactivity. And when you do that, there's a few different ways to do it. And one is by using a scanner object. So to do this, we have to import the scanner class. And I'm going to do that above, in my class, but above the main method. So I already had this available to me. And it tells me, okay, you want to create a scanner object, but you haven't imported the java.util.scanner. And I can do that, it's telling me, by pressing Alt and Enter on my keyboard. And you can tell that it imported the java.util.scanner class. So in the Java library, there are a ton of classes, thousands, that have already been created for us to use. And so what we want to do is use the scanner class to accept input from the user. Now, classes are definitions, like blueprints. Objects, like we're going to be creating a scanner object, is kind of like the house that comes from the blueprint. The blueprint is the definition, the house is the object. So scanner is the definition, and the scanner object is what we are going to create. And we're creating the scanner object, and it's got to have a name. And this scanner name is input. So you'll see oftentimes you'll see scanner objects called SC or IN or just simply input as we have here. And so that's what we've got. Okay, I've written a little bit more of the program, and you can see that I am declaring variables here. I've got the int keyword, so that's int for integer, all right, primitive data type, and I've got int1, comma, sum. So I can stack variables as long as they're the same data type. I can stack them on the same line separated by commas. Remember in the reading that you cannot use a keyword as a variable name. So pretty much anything that would appear in blue in Java is not allowed as a variable name. So I couldn't call an integer simply int. That's a data type. So you can see that I've got int1 here, and then I've got sum. Now I also need a int2, but I'm going to do that a little bit differently. I'm going to show you in a second. So we're getting input from the user. And so we have to shoot a line out to the user. And there are two essential methods that we're going to use for this: print and print line, or print ln. Print ln will accept or will put out the message, but it will also go to a new line. We don't want that in this case. We want the user to enter the information on the same line. So I've got system.out.print, and then in parentheses I've got the message in quotes enter int1. Now notice the end of this quote has a colon and a space before I end it. That's so the user has some spacing for the output. Okay, so these are just more English details than programming details, but they're important for clarity. All right, and then any statement that we have in Java has to end in a semicolon. And so I've ended that statement. So you'll notice here it says write your code here. Well, that's because there's a couple of different ways to create comments. When you're doing just a comment on one line, you would do it like this, and you could say the purpose of this program is to add two integers and display the sum. Okay, so comments are very important in a program. As you can imagine, as programs become more complicated, you want to be able to identify what is happening in certain sections of the program, and for that you'd use comments. Okay, so going back to our program itself, I've got variables, okay, and we talked about variables in the introductory videos. Their variables are memory locations that hold data and have a name. They also have a type, okay? So if I have an int data type, integer is whole number, okay? And the simple way to think about this is if I'm selling things at a hardware store, let's say I'm selling lawnmowers, I can't have 5.3 lawnmowers. I can only have 5 lawnmowers, right? And so if I had something else that I needed to have a decimal place, there are other data types to do that. Typically we use double. Okay, in our particular case, we're just getting two whole numbers really. Okay, so enter int1, and so now what we're doing is we've declared the variable int1 here, and now we are providing a value for int1, and this is key. So input is the name of what? It is the name of the scanner object. Okay, so the scanner object is needed to supply the value to the variable. So the scanner object has this next int method available to us. A method is something that does something. Okay, and so what this does is it gets what the user entered on this line. That's what it's doing. You could kind of just put in your mind, this means get. Get the next integer, okay, and put it in this variable int1. All right, so we've got that. Now we need int2. Okay, in programming, it is very useful to be able to simply copy and paste instead of typing. So we do that as often as we can, but then you need to change the particulars. So this needs to be int2. Well, you say, wait a minute, we don't have an int2. Well, yes we do, or we're going to, but I wanted to show you another way to create it. You can just create it on the fly. Let's see, int2 is equal to, okay, and now I'm going to do input dot next int. Okay, and it comes up on my IntelliSense there, so I'm just going to hit tab. All right, and semicolon. Okay, so now what I've done is I've created a variable on the fly instead of statically here. So I'm creating the variable and assigning it at the same time. Remember, equals is the assignment. Okay, so the last part of the program is we need to add them. Okay, I'm running out of time on my recording. I'm only allowed 15 minutes with this particular software. So I finished it up. So we talked about creating int2 here. Now we have sum already, right? And now we're assigning it. Sum is equal to int1 plus int2. Okay, so now we have all the numbers we need. We just need to output them. And we've got this system.out.println, println. Okay, and then this is called concatenation, by the way, key term. We've got the sum of int1 and int2 is, notice the space here before I end the literal string quotation, and then add, so the plus sign is a way to add a variable, then we've got the variable sum. Okay, this is just an example of what will help you to complete assignment 1.